Hi, my name is Sonia Warren. I am a class teacher and currently I'm teaching grade 1. Well, in grade 1, there is a lot to learn. Habits of how to push your chair in, how to hang your things in your hook, how to follow multi-step directions, how to observe what's around them, how to get along with classmates, how to say I'm sorry, how to accept apology. And also in grade 1, as far as the academic learning goes, we teach the alphabet and all these sounds, and then we start to put it together and formulate words and begin to encode and decode our English language. We also work on our numbers and learning our numbers, and we learn the 4 processes of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And then we work with that all year. And we also learn to paint and build on that from day to day. And we also learn to sing different songs and move as a group together. Work. All right, so this is currently, we are in our alphabet block. And so every day we are learning a different letter, and it's coming through a story and an image. And so, for example, we had a very large giant, and he was so large that when he walked, his leg would go between mountains, and out of that leg we got an L. We also have more samples, many examples here. But another one, I told a story about a swan. And the swan in the story made an S with its neck and its body. And out of that, you can see that we do their S. And we can see that they are coming up with all sorts of words that are beginning with the letter. And actually, you can see behind me, we worked with V today. And so we have all these words, fantastic words that they came up with today for the letter V. And so that is actually his last one in this book, and we're starting a new one tomorrow. So we have his V here, and we drew a valley for V. What's special about the Waldorf curriculum in first grade is that we teach things a little differently. So rather than having just dry, here's a B, memorize its sound, we have the image, as I showed in the work before, of the bee coming through, and so they're going to remember forever that bee is the brown bull, and that the face of the bull made a bee, and that they see that image in their head. And not only that, we're moving it with our body, so they all came up with, for the sound B, that it goes or like the sound D, they all do this and they jump. And a lot of it is different in Waldorf education, is that we're talking about how it is said with the mouth, and then how the letter is formed, and then the sounds they make. So we get to build on that. So I say Waldorf education is different in that way. It's not necessarily dry. We make it fun. It's alive, and they're excited, like, what letter are we gonna write today? Or they come in and they're guessing what it is. And, you know, with the quality of numbers, we're working with numbers from day 1, even before they learn to add and subtract, multiply, divide. We're asking questions, you know, how many fingers do we all have as a whole class? Really, we have 400? Are you sure it's not 200? You know, we get to have a lot of fun, and we're also paying attention to the children and able to go, oh, we need to pull back here, or we need to keep going here. So it's a lot of give and take and paying attention to what the needs of the children are. I guess one thing that people do often ask is about the journey from 1st through 8th grade. What if the kid doesn't like their teacher? Or what if the teacher doesn't like the child? And one thing that I say is, it's when you meet the child and you're working with the child, and the child's traveling through all these years with you, there's a relationship that's grown between you, and that relationship is key to making this successful, as well as the relationship with the family. is super important, because that relationship you are building with them, and it's a relationship. It's not just you're my student for a year and I can put up with you for a year. No, you're developing a relationship, you're building skills, and you're trying to bring that to the forefront of the whole entire education.
My name is Lauren Hannigan and I am teaching second grade this year. In second grade, we learned about fables, Aesop's fables, and we learned about stories of great people from all over the world and that have been heroes to humanity. The second grade curriculum is full of movement and song and really learning about what makes people great. Something that people always ask me about Waldorf education is what makes Waldorf different, and there's so many things I could go on about it, but one thing that really makes Waldorf stand out is our focus on the individual, each child as an individual soul, and seeing them develop as their unique personality. The focus on each child is really what makes Waldorf special.
I am April Mann, and this year I am teaching third grade. In third grade, we really moved beyond the fairy tales and the fables that we spent a lot of time with in the first and second grade, because that's such the world of imagination. And as children turn 9 years old in the third grade, they start to feel more connected to the real world around them. And so third grade is about giving them a foundation in what the real world might be like and how they can fit into it. So we measure things, and we learn about building shelters, and we learn about farming, and all those things that kind of are foundational to humans being on the earth. And really speaks to them. They love it. They're such doers in third grade. They're kind of out of that dreamy way that some of them were in second grade and first grade. And they want to get to it. And so that's what we do in third grade. We're busy and we're happy doing and making and feeling solid on the earth. So good. All right, so yesterday, this is our book work that we did. We spent quite a bit of time measuring our bookcase as one of the things that we measured yesterday, our bookcase. And so we discovered that what we needed to measure was the height of it, the width of it, and the depth of it. And so, because we found out by experimenting that certain things don't fit in a bookcase if it's not deep enough. And then today we did our book work, which was to write the importance of why we measure what we measure, and that 1 foot and all these different abbreviations for 1 foot equals 12 inches. And the height measures how tall, length measures how long. So we wrote that into our books so that we would have that bit of knowledge. Wow, third grade in Waldorf education. I think we just get to live it more. Like, I think other schools talk about it. I think our school gets to live it. We are makers here and doers and creators. So when we learn math, we're not just talking about it conceptually and it's all this thinking. We're really moving that math. We're getting out the scale and weighing things and doing comparisons. We did that today, and the kids were howling with laughter, as we were trying to make it all work, and everybody coming up and taking an opportunity to weigh and measure things. We went on a little walking field trip to do some measurement, and when we were measuring with our hands and our feet, and so we went outside to do that. We walked all over the neighborhood, and I had created a little handwritten worksheet for them, and they were filling in the numbers, and they had so much fun doing that. So we really bring a lot of physicality, I think, to our learning, as well as they're learning how to crochet this year, so they're all making things with their hands, measuring their bodies, because crochet is sort of free form and they can make their hand warmers fit exactly their own hands. Things like that that really make it fun.
My name is Lori Cran, and currently I teach 4th grade. This is my 3rd time through as a 4th grade teacher, and I also teach 11th grade and 10th grade history at the high school. So in 4th grade, it is a big developmental year. The language arts curriculum is the Norse mythology as well as indigenous culture stories. And so we are really focusing on the indigenous stories right now. Another big area is we move from whole numbers into the infinite number of fractions in between 2 whole numbers. And so we're looking and learning how to create fraction problems. And another big topic is the human being and animal. And so we study the archetypal animals, and they write a little mini research paper. And then another big area is in form drawing. This year we do a lot of braided forms. And so if you're not sure what that is, just think about all of the Celtic forms in the world. Those are examples of braided forms, and we do a lot of things like that. Yeah, so I have one student's work, and this is what we're currently doing in fractions. And so in Waldorf schools, we do like to bring things artistically. And so this was one of our experiences. We called it fractionated foods. And so we looked at the apple. We also ate bananas. We ate a box of dried cherries, things like that. And so here's another example. This is just the definitions. Something quite profound. In between any 2 whole numbers, there is a countable infinite number of fractions. So just wrapping their minds around that is just incredible. Here's a beautiful fraction tree where we start with the whole and then the half and go all the way to 1/32. So what is unique in the 4th grade in particular is the way that we look at a world that prior to this had been very wholesome, and movies moving from the whole to the parts, and now with fractions we have really exploded. I like to do this to the students because they know that we're blowing our minds. And then what's beautiful about it as well is that, so for example, in handwork, they're doing cross stitch, and so that's very fractionated work. And then in strings, they are learning how to read music, and again, a 4/4 signature. All of the different notes are represented as fractions, and those, so that they can read fractions in music, read fractions in the way that they design an artistic project. So that whole concept of a fractionated world is huge. So the one thing I really like to always stress is that Waldorf schools are not artistic schools. The difference is that we are not an art school where we are looking to make artists. We are a school that believes that every single subject should be taught artistically. So mathematics, science, speech, singing, history, every subject is taught artistically. It is not necessarily an art. And so the entire pedagogy, the entire curriculum is in this richness of the art world, because we know that grades 1 through 8 in particular, if they are working through their hearts, then the thinking and the movement, the actions in the world will be heartfelt. What do you teach?
I'm Vivian Melody, and I teach the class of 5th grade currently, but it's the class of 2024 at the Cincinnati Waldorf School. We learn so many things. We have a very packed curriculum in the 5th grade. We learn in mathematics, primarily new skills in decimals, lots of review with fractions. We also learn botany, including the lower plants and the higher level plants. We learn many ancient cultures, Mesopotamia and Persia, China, Mesoamerica, Greek. It's amazing, so much social studies. We also learn in language arts many skills that kind of go overlapping in all of those. North American geography is another one that we learn, and so we study the states. We study Canada and Mexico, the Caribbean islands, and countries there as well. So we do a lot with the national parks, and each student does a state project and gets to do a research paper on just their state as well. The curriculum in 5th grade, it really meets the students where they're at and gives them so much academic rigor. We really enjoy studying the Greek mythologies in 5th grade, and then we also culminate that in a huge field trip where we would tend to, I don't know if we'll do it because of the pandemic, but we meet up with all the other Waldorf schools in our region and we have a pentathlon, so a Greek Olympics, and it's really, really fun part of 5th grade.
My name is Jody Harris, and I'm teaching the 6th grade this year with the class that I started with in 1st grade. In 6th grade, in the humanities, we study ancient Rome and the Middle Ages, and we have a block on business math. We do a little business to give us some experience with that, so it's all very concrete and based in reality rather than abstract textbook-based math. And we do a lot of science. We have physics, astronomy, geology. We also do European geography based, since we're studying Rome in the Middle Ages. And yeah, and we have a geometric drawing block where we make very detailed form drawings with compasses and rulers and really work on precision and beauty in our work. This is one of the early ones that we did, and here here's another example. So you can see how carefully the student makes the lines. First does the circle with the compass, makes the lines. These are interlocking hexagons. And then we experiment with different shading techniques to achieve radiating, or we have some spiraling, some more steady mandala type work, interlocking hexagrams. There's a spiral. And the students are really focused when they do this work. They're really trying to be very, keep saying the word precise, but it's really a year when we move out from just sort of doing something to really thinking about how we're doing it and really working on precision in our drawing and in our writing and in our math work. It's all related. In the 6th grade, as I mentioned, there's the precision that we are working toward, and again, we're doing math and we're starting to use textbooks, but I and other Waldorf teachers really try to keep it, to give students experiences of it in their body. So for example, today we're going to start talking about negative numbers. And I have a number line on the floor with masking tape on the chalkboard and a 0 marked, so students can like walk a few steps in one direction and then walk more steps in the other direction and see they passed 0 and have that experience of numbers on the opposite side of 0, the negative side of 0 on the number line. And we are working out a little business venture in connection with our business, math, and economics block, an enchanted Halloween walk. And we're starting with that to talk about negative numbers as debt. So far we haven't made any money, but we've spent a little bit of money. So we have $0 or less than $0 in our business. So it's another way that they can really kind of get a sense of what negative numbers are, as opposed to it's lesson 14 in the textbook and negative numbers are, they look like this in the textbook. Yeah, often in the upper grades, people in open houses and also our own parents who have been in the school a while start thinking about high school and wondering how students transition from Waldorf into high school. And I always want people to know that that's definitely something we think about a lot in our faculty and as teachers in the upper grades. And I'm often thinking, what will my students need to know in high school, and how can I bring that to them in a way that is meets them where they are, not just doing high school stuff because it's coming, but what do they need to know how to do, and how can I do that for them in a 6th grade way? So our book reports are often 5-paragraph essays, but the content is more suited to 5th graders and 6th graders. And you know, we start using math textbooks, and we're thinking about writing skills, and we start using planners and talk about organizing your time. And if the book report is due next Friday, look at your life, look at your schedule, look at your planner, and decide for yourself how you're going to chunk it out, what days are the best days for you to do that report. So even though we keep things, you know, on a daily basis, there's a lot of activity and outdoor time and art and beauty, nature, and social time and learning in a social way. We still have in our mind a picture of where they're going forward into high school, whether it's at the Waldorf High School or another high school, so that they'll be prepared and ready to excel there as well.
My name is Alex Peterson, and I am the class teacher for the 7th grade class this year. I also currently am teaching 7th and 8th grade Spanish. In 7th grade, we cover Renaissance history. We also study the history of the Reformation, along with the Age of Discovery and explorers sailing around the world. We get an introduction to chemistry. We also do creative writing and stories and poetry. We do a play every year, as do all classes, and we will also wrap up the year with physics. In the 7th grade, we are really starting to move from our objective observations of 6th grade and into more nuance with creativity, and trying to discover how can we take what we know and make it human, make it beautiful, make it natural. And we are trying to help the students also navigate their new social dynamics as things are changing, early adolescence, and we want all the students to really learn how to be kind with each other all over again, and by the time they get to 8th grade, when they become burgeoning leaders in society and feel that level of responsibility to each other.
My name is Sarah Kimball, and I teach eurythmy, which is a movement art form. This year I'm teaching 1st grade through 11th grade. Next year, when we don't have COVID, I will teach kindergarten as well. This form behind me is a 7th grade form. The children in the class would walk it probably to music, and I might be telling them to change which direction they're facing. It helps with coordination and group awareness. With the little children, I do stories based on whatever it is that they're doing in main lesson. So I am reinforcing through movement and art and music and speech whatever their main lesson teacher is teaching them. Eurythmy is completely specific to Waldorf education. It's not taught anywhere else. And what I love about eurythmy is that it is teaching children how to sort of communicate in a different way than they would be able to communicate otherwise. I'm teaching the 3rd grade right now, and I'm teaching them how to say the alphabet in eurythmy. Each sound in the alphabet has a gesture that goes with it. So this is an A, this is an M, and I'm teaching them how to say their names and how to spell their names, which helps with spelling and coordination, and it's just beautiful and magical as well. We have live music. There's a piano in this room, and we have live music at every single class. And everything is built by the students together. We don't have props. It's all coming from inside of them. And it's beautiful to see them work together.
My name is Luke Shelley, and I teach practical arts, and in this case it is woodworking and clay sculpture, black and white drawing for the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th grade. Well, what I hear from folks who come to see things is that really many other schools don't even have woodwork, handicrafts, skilled crafts anymore, and that we like to get kids involved in what we call the practical arts. And they're practical in the sense that sometimes they make practical objects like bowls, but also they're learning practical life experiences, life skills. We do work with a lot of math and geometry to lay out our work, scaling things up, scaling things down. It's kind of a nice segue, or classes in sort of proto-industrial design, right? Kids who really thrive in these classes usually really like the industrial designs. They like the figuring out, the planning ahead, and then the artistic and the rational kind of combined together, where you may get a piece of wood and you're not sure what you're going to get as a piece of wood, and you may just impose whatever you want to do on these pieces of wood, and you might find that the piece of wood suggests something to you. And so there's this artistic level, as well as, wood is wood, it has grain and it works in certain ways, and you have to learn those practical skills, just like you would have to learn practical skills for any other profession or craft skill that you would want to do. So woodworking starts in the 5th grade, and we start with some very simple tools and simple processes that we've experienced a little bit with clay in the art room, carving and removing things, laying out projects. And then we work with some simple tools, as I was saying, really rasp, and we learn to use a Japanese saw to make some simple objects, sort of a figure. We learn about proportions of the body and the head, and we try and make some very rudimentary limb dolls, which kids really like. And the second project in the 5th grade is we've worked with, I don't know if I have a piece around here, some really old construction lumber from over the Rhine, some of the buildings from the 1800s. When they've been renovated and then torn down, I've scavenged a few pieces of really old pine wood, and kids are learning to make the round shape and taper with a farrier's rasp and using the saw, right? And we figure out how to make a circle inside of a square. And so we work with geometry in order to make some simple tops. This year, because I have to move along a little bit faster, we're starting with a piece of wood that's already square, and they're learning about faceting and going from the square to the round, and working with kerf cutting in order to work their way down to a top shape. That's in the 5th grade. Sometimes we make mice, carve mice, but we haven't done that for a while. In the 6th grade, we move on to spoons, and from here on out, we're really working with logs. We're trying to get a piece of wood from a log, and we learn about the grain of wood, and we start using some carpentry tools, some woodworking tools, and we learn about the froe and the mallet, and how the froe is a wedge, and if you can find a natural cleft in the wood, right, you can use that to your advantage to cleave off a piece of you can cleave off a piece of this cherry wood to get yourself a rough piece of wood, right? This is a piece of walnut, and so we work with fruit woods and walnut. And then from this, we go over and we use the draw knives at the sawhorses here, the shaving horses, and we try and make this into more of a blank. And the blanks that you see that the students have worked with are here on the table, right? And so they've taken this piece of wood and they've draw knifed it down and they flattened it out and they smoothed it out, and then this is some, right? So here's a piece of wood that's sort of been turned into a blank, right? And here we have a design of a spoon that's going to lay out here, and I think it was from an original design on a smaller design that was blown up using the scale and ratio bars. And then they work first with a small bowl, right? So this is the beginning of some concavity. And they carve out the bowl. And once they're done with the bowl, then they'll start carving around the outside to complete the spoon all the way through. And hopefully by the end, they'll have then this sort of shaft part, and then we'll work with the spoke shave and the draw knife and some sandpaper to make a spoon. And the spoon, you know, here is, there's sort of the functional part of the spoon part, and then there's the back, which is more ergonomic, has to relate to your hand and how you're going to work with it. So we talk about some ergonomics as well. Then we move on into the 7th grade, and all the projects that are on the table now, I have the 7th grade currently, and they're all working on bowls. And once again, they start with the log, and we'll split logs down into sections, and then they'll use a scrub plane and a smoothing plane to flatten the surfaces, and then they'll lay out a design. And there's lots of different ways. This is a bowl design with the growth rings going with the bowl, and most of these bowls here, and that's one like this in process, and these are the growth rings going opposite the bowl, right? And some students find that their piece of wood breaks or makes an interesting shape, and then they work with that interesting shape. And others have an idea in their mind of what they're going to shape that bowl like, and then sort of impose that shape on the wood. It's very interesting to see different students, how they come to the projects. And this is, we use these gouges and mallets. We're going to work these down, and then they'll work the outside of the bowl as well. And that's what we do in the 7th grade. In the 8th grade, we build these 4-legged stools with a wedged tenon, and this starts with a poplar blank that they make the circle in the square, back to their original 5th grade, trying to lay out a circle within the square with diagonals to find the center point. Then they work on this, cutting the corners off, and then they will split. And this one in particular is cedar wood. They've split some cedar logs into 4 leg pieces, and then we'll go to the shaving horses here and use the draw knife, and they'll peel down legs to a reasonable leg shape, and then we'll put a little tenon on them, and then we'll drill the top of the tenon, and then we'll put a curve cut in there and a wedge, and we'll marry all this. So this is the first thing they do that's really an assemblage of things, right? They have to plan out the legs, they figure out what's the proper height of their foot to the back of their knee, the more ergonomics. And then there's really the experience of really, what do you want to shape these legs at? Sort of short and round and fat, or follow the shape of the curves, and each one of them, either cedar or oak or ash, and we'll find a different shape that they really like out of their legs. And that is what we do in the 8th grade. Up at the high school, we work with mortise and tenon joints. We also do dovetail joints to learn how to do boxes. We make boxes. We learn the half lap joints, lots of joinery in the 10th grade. In the 11th grade and 12th grade, we're moving into, we want to plan out actually moving into some blacksmithing and some other jewelry making and stone carving. So hopefully when we get that 12th grade, we'll have the stone carving.
My name is Catherine Biederman, and I teach strings orchestra in grades 4 through 8. Well, we learn, of course, to play all the string instruments. Students choose violin, viola, cello, or bass in 4th grade and usually stay with that throughout their 5 years. But teaching strings is really more of an excuse to teach development of the habit life and perseverance and grit by making mistakes and trying over again, as well as developing our social awareness of playing together, of listening for what's going on, of deciding when your part is more important or when you're listening to somebody else, and how it all fits together. I think what's really special is that it is an opportunity for all the children to play the instrument. That's one of the things I love about Waldorf education, where everybody does everything. You don't have to be great at it to do it, and everybody sees each other's strengths and challenges, and you all get a chance to do it and develop that skill, which they really can transform later in life, regardless of whether they continue playing violin or not. They'll often pick up another instrument. They'll be able to read music. And then again, those social skills that we're building, I think, also carry on. I think probably the most frequently asked question is, how do children who join the class late fit in? And usually we do ask those students to take private lessons so they can catch up in the technique, because after the first year, we're usually just playing music and we don't have a chance to bring new students up to the teaching level of playing the music. So we do ask them to take private lessons, but in class they get a lot of a chance to listen. I'll often have them play an open string on the beat, or sometimes we adapt their parts to what they're able to play. And they usually catch up pretty quickly, and all the students are really accepting of, we all start out like this, and we all make mistakes, and we're all trying our best. So they usually work out pretty well with a lot of hard work at home.
My name is Jamie Wang. I'm teaching Mandarin Chinese. I'm teaching from 1st grade to 11th grade in Waldorf School. The students not only learning the language, they're also learning the culture and tradition, holidays, and food culture as well. This is the lesson 2. We're talking about the language and nationality. So we're learning the world map and focus on 4 continents. So this is Asia, Africa, Europe, and United States of America and America area. So we are learning the Asia country and Europe country, and also pair with the language they spoke and pair with the people in that country. So this is a whole project that each student will draw their world map, also individual continents, and with the individual label with the country. So that's each block we have the block. We have a block project to do.
My name is Alex Peterson, and I am the class teacher for the 7th grade class this year. I also currently am teaching 7th and 8th grade Spanish. In middle school Spanish, we are getting into advanced grammar. We are also studying history and cultures of Spanish-speaking countries. We learn how to write longer essays in Spanish and do research projects, and we practice speaking when we can through dialogue, as well as storytelling and doing skits and role play. And we're really just trying to get them set up to where they can be comfortable moving into a high school level Spanish class at an intermediate level as opposed to beginner. In Waldorf schools, for foreign language, Spanish, we, instead of memorizing vocabulary for tests, instead of learning the rules of grammar and then, okay, now you apply them, we want the students to discover what grammar rules are through applied examples. They look at actual text, we look at examples of certain sentence structures, and the class as a group comes to understand what is going on. And so this is implicit learning as opposed to explicit. We want them to ask questions, be creative, and not just simply be told what all the answers are. So a frequent question I get is, so does this mean if the students have had Spanish grades 1 through 8, that by 8th grade they are fluent? That is a common question, and short answer, they are, but they don't believe they are. It's not until really once they become 16, 17, 18 years old that they develop a self-confidence. Right now they're very self-conscious and afraid of making mistakes through speaking because of what their peers might view them, how they might view them. But we encourage them to make mistakes. We encourage them to try their best, and their listening and reading comprehension is very high, and it's just a matter of encouraging them to be speakers in class and not worry about making mistakes. So they are very well versed in Spanish, but they're 13 and 14-year-olds.
My name is Adam Peterson, and I teach choral and general music for grades 1 through 11.
What do your students learn in your classes?
Primarily, we learn to sing, singing as an individual and also singing in harmony with other students. We also spend some time learning the nuts and bolts of musicianship, of music theory, musical notation. So we learn to read music. And we also spend some time working with instruments. Through the grades, we work primarily with wooden flutes, which graduates into recorders. And then into the upper grades in high school, have recently been introducing ukuleles, guitars, and some piano in high school as well. In our Waldorf education, in the music program, we're not so concerned with generating excellent musicians as we are with ensuring that every student has a meaningful musical experience. And so, whereas naturally there will be students who do excel in music and may even go on to pursue it professionally, the intention of bringing music in the Waldorf school is a lot more to do with social health, the experience of making music with one another can teach a child a lot about how to live harmoniously in the world as a member of a larger ensemble or a larger society. Also, we really enjoy having the experience of music in the course of the day as something of a contrast to the academic work that we do. So whereas music can become an academic subject, for the most part, it's really more of an experiential subject, and that way provides a breath of fresh air. It can be a very synthesizing experience as well. Singing is something that everyone, every child, every teacher does every day at the Waldorf school, from the littlest students to the oldest students. And how in my music program that kind of evolves as the child grows. So in the younger grades, pretty much all of the singing that we're doing is in unison. Everybody is singing the same thing at the same time. And it's usually in the context of a game or a dance or a story. And then once we get into the middle grades, we start studying how to read music. Then we're starting to sing in harmony, and we take steps to achieve proper harmony by singing first in rounds. And then once we get into the older grades, the students are learning to hold their own independent voice part. And then we're sort of forming the chorus to be, also as the voices are changing, the chorus can become a 3 or 4 part harmony ensemble.
My name is Lydia Kelly, and I currently teach handwork to the 7th grade. I also teach handwork to 8th grade. I teach handwork and basketry and printmaking and bookbinding in the high school. And I also teach beeswax modeling in grades 1, 2, 3, and 4. In this class, in the 7th grade handwork that's going on here, I think one of the things that they're learning is how to really develop a sensitivity of knowing in their hands, because they really have to feel that the wool fibers are starting to come together before they move on to the next stage, and then it feels a certain way and you move on to the next stage. So there's a kind of cultivating of intelligence of the hand, I think, and a sense of judgment. I also think that when people make things that they're going to wear, like slippers, ultimately, you don't really need to tell somebody they've done a good job. They can feel it, they're gonna wear it, they're gonna enjoy it. And it's, so it's sort of a very nice way of helping to build self-sufficiency and self-esteem. So those are a couple of things I think they learn. Yeah. What is different about this year, a main thing in this class is that we're doing it outside. We're trying as much as we can to be outside. It's actually wonderful to work outside. They've done a fabulous job. It means a lot more setup and cleanup for the teacher, because I have to haul out gallons and gallons and gallons of hot water and materials and then take them all back every day. So what else would be different? I suppose the challenge of masks and of us hearing each other and being outside sometimes is challenging. It's also super rewarding to be outside and see the trees and the birds, and the kids really have done a great job with the work. So the unique aspect of handwork education in Waldorf schools probably is that element that I mentioned before, the idea of making items of utility and then feeling the worth or the value of having learned how to knit or crochet or how to actually felt something. These are very, very old traditional arts and are incredibly useful. It's incredibly useful to know how to do these things. I think it builds all sorts of capacities in students, both in terms of their hand skills and small motor. I think it helps with memory and coordination, helps with academics. It also allows us to bring in tremendous history at a very young age, to be able to talk about ancient history where people figured out these technologies. So there's a lot to it, and it's an integral part of Waldorf education from the early childhood on through. All kids learn how to knit, crochet, and felt, and weave baskets and other things, depending on how far they go. A frequently asked question, I think, by parents who maybe never learned how to do crocheting and knitting might sort of question, like, why do you do this? Or will my child have to do something like this? What if it's really hard for them? And I think we try to show how working through a process and learning how to do something is really valuable for children and gives them skills. I have a daughter in college who has friends in college who were shocked when she sewed a button back onto something, and she made curtains for her apartment, and her friends were just like absolutely amazed. How did she do this? And she was just like, well, it's just something you do, you know? And she's equally fearless in her college design education program. So I think it's something that transfers over, that sense that I know how to do stuff with my hands, and I can actually do stuff unafraid.
My name is Joe Thomas. I am the games teacher at the Cincinnati Waldorf School and at the Cincinnati Waldorf High School. For games class, we really kind of take a holistic approach. We do heart, hand, and head. With the hands, we learn the basics of a sport, how to dribble a basketball, how to throw a frisbee. With the heart, we kind of we take a look at compassion, sportsmanship, teamwork, how to communicate with your classmates. And with the heart, or with the head, we kind of take a look at the strategy behind a sport and how you can work together to kind of give your team an advantage. So starting off in first grade, we have mostly story-based games. They're learning rules and they're learning skills, but it's really about, keeping the fish off the island and making sure the squirrels look out for the hawks and things like that. So it's really very story-based. In second, third grade, we start to do more skill building. throwing, catching, kicking, but we're not getting into traditional sports. We're still story-based. We've added some danger, like stealing gold from the ogres and stuff like that. So by the time they get in 5th and 6th grade, they're starting to learn traditional sports, volleyball and basketball and even ultimate frisbee. And that continues up into 7th and 8th grade. We also do juggling, try to keep juggling going throughout from 1st to 8th grade. We introduce archery in 6th grade. We do some pentathlon events like discus and javelin and long jump. And it really finishes up with getting into traditional sports that any student can play in high school and then later on in life, volleyball and badminton, ultimate frisbee, softball, things like that. And then the other thing, the quality of students that we have here really make it easy to reach out on that heart level and kind of instruct on that heart level. They recognize when a teammate or a classmate needs some emotional support during a game, and they recognize that, and they're the first ones to help out before I even get there. So the quality of the student is just remarkable in a Waldorf school, and at Cincinnati Waldorf School specifically. And just the fact that we're able to have these kids on a developmental plan and not force them too soon to do something they're not ready to do. From people outside of the school, we've had some tours and they've seen the archery equipment and they're like, "You teach archery in 6th grade?" I'm like, yes. I mean, they're ready for it in 6th grade and they're fantastic at it. And we introduce it a little bit, then we do more, and then by the time they're in 8th grade, they're routinely hitting the target. So they're surprised, some people are surprised to hear stuff like that. And then there's other people that are surprised to learn, oh wait, you do basketball and volleyball at Waldorf School? I'm like, yes, traditional sports are, fundamental part of our middle school games class. So just trying to kind of ease people's misunderstandings of what we do here. And it's a wide breadth of skills. Stilt walking, juggling, climbing walls, things like that. So at the Cincinnati Waldorf School in a traditional year, we start offering sports in 5th grade. In the past, we've had boys and girls basketball. We've had girls volleyball teams 5th through high school. And there's also a lot of interest in boys volleyball teams that we're hoping to get to in the spring. We've had a cross-country team. One of our cross-country runners is now running for St. X High School, St. Xavier High School, and doing quite well. We have had soccer in the past. A lot of this is student-led. So if they come to me and they say, "Mr. Thomas, we want to start a soccer team," then we find out exactly who's available, find out what parents are available to coach. I coach a lot of teams. Then we find a league and we get signed up and we play soccer. So I'm very proud that that particular class that started soccer, 21 out of the 24 students in that class played soccer on that team. So our percentage of involvement, it grows each year. And it's been, and our opportunities have grown each year. I'm waiting for an opportunity to start an archery team. I think that would be a logical next step for us, and an ultimate frisbee team.